Hey there. Ready to dive into the world of Asian Paints? We've got a stack of their latest financial reports and investor call transcripts, and let me tell you, it's way more exciting than it sounds.
It really is. What's fascinating here is how Asian Paints is navigating this changing market.
All right, so let's break it all down. Let's start with the big picture. How did they actually perform this past quarter?
Well, overall, it's a mixed bag, you see. Their sales revenue actually declined, which of course impacted profits, and they're dealing with a slowdown in demand, especially, I should say, in urban areas.
So is that basically saying that that pandemic home improvement craze is over? People aren't slapping on a fresh coat of paint as often?
Exactly, and you can see this reflected in their volume growth. While it's still in the double digits over the past 5 years, the last 6 months have seen a noticeable slowdown.
Makes sense. Now, Asian Paints isn't just like a one-trick pony. They've got their hands in a lot of different paint cans, so to speak.
Right. And their performance varies across these different segments. I guess you could say their bread and butter, the decorative paint segment, that's where they're feeling the heat. But on the other hand, their industrial paints business is holding up better, showing resilience in things like automotive and protective coatings.
Interesting. So it's not all doom and gloom. Are there any bright spots we should be aware of?
They've also highlighted some positive performance in their international business, particularly in the Middle East. So diversifying their portfolio is seeming to help them weather the storm.
Okay, that's a smart move, for sure. But let's get back to those challenges. What are they doing to tackle this demand slowdown and the increasing competition? Are they just like crossing their fingers hoping for a fresh coat of economic optimism?
No, definitely not. Asian Paints is taking a more proactive approach, focusing on a few key strategies. Firstly, innovation. They're launching new and, well, frankly, exciting new products. Have you heard about their paint that neutralizes air pollutants?
Hold on, a paint that cleans the air. So it's more than just a fresh coat. That's like magic.
Yeah, it's called Apex Ultima Suprema Aero Clean, and it's a prime example of how they're really trying to leverage innovation to address, those evolving consumer preferences and also environmental concerns.
That's impressive. What else is on their strategic palette?
Well, they're also making a pretty big push into the home decor market, opening new stores, forming partnerships. They're really trying to capture a larger share of that whole home improvement pie.
So they're not just painting walls, they're helping people decorate their entire homes. That's a smart way to kind of, I guess, expand their reach.
Absolutely. And to reach even more customers, they're focusing on expanding their distribution network, particularly in those rural areas where demand seems to be holding up better. They're even training painters in mechanization techniques to boost productivity and efficiency.
So they're going high tech and reaching out to new markets. It seems like they're pulling out all the stops to stay ahead of the game.
Right, they're demonstrating adaptability and a willingness to, well, evolve, which is crucial in a dynamic market like this one.
But, not every brushstroke is a masterpiece. How's their foray into home decor actually performing?
Well, it hasn't been without, some hiccups. Some segments, like kitchens and bathrooms, haven't seen the growth that they expected. They've also mentioned some regulatory challenges impacting their weather seal sales.
So maybe some growing pains.
I think,
After all, it's a relatively new venture for them.
yeah, that's certainly a possibility. It will be interesting to see how they refine their strategies in this market.
Speaking of different markets, let's talk about their international presence. I mean, they're in so many countries, it's like a global paint party.
It is. Their international business, saw a mixed bag of results this quarter. While they highlighted strong performance in the Middle East, particularly in the UAE, markets like Africa actually faced challenges due to currency devaluation.
Yeah, sounds like a roller coaster navigating all those different economies and currencies.
Indeed, but there have been some positive signs as well, like a recovery in key Asian markets like Sri Lanka.
So their global journey's a bit bumpy, but they're making progress. Okay, let's zoom in on a specific area that caught my eye. Their industrial business. They have these two joint ventures, PPGAP and APPPG, and I think their performance has been pretty interesting.
You're right, those joint ventures offer a really fascinating, I think, glimpse into their industrial strategy. The PPGAP joint venture, which is focused on automotive and industrial coatings, has been a star performer. They achieved a solid 6% growth this quarter, with a profit before tax margin of a whopping 22%.
Whoa, 22%? That's impressive, especially considering the whole overall slowdown in the automotive sector. What's their secret sauce?
Well, their success can be attributed to a few factors. Firstly, their broad-based growth across various industrial segments, including, refinishes, has been really key. And secondly, they've managed to maintain strong profitability despite a tight pricing environment. So it shows they're not just growing, they're growing, smartly.
Smart growth. I like that. But their other joint venture, APPPG, which deals with protective and powder coatings, hasn't had quite as rosy a quarter, has it?
True, while they've seen growth over the 9-month period, this specific quarter was a bit, subdued, and profits were impacted by that tight pricing environment we were just discussing.
So one venture's booming, the other is facing some headwinds. It's a good reminder that even within a single company, there can be, vastly different stories playing out.
Absolutely. And it highlights the importance of understanding the nuances of each segment and how they contribute to the overall performance of the company.
Now, we've talked about revenue, profits, different segments, but what about their margins? They've been dealing with fluctuating raw material prices and implementing price adjustments. How's that all shaken out?
Well, their gross margins have been a key area of focus. Despite a year-on-year decline, they've actually seen sequential improvement, moving from 41.1% in the previous quarter to 43.2% this quarter. So it's a constant balancing act, trying to manage costs while staying competitive.
So they're walking a tightrope between pricing and profitability.
Exactly. They did implement a price increase in the previous quarter, which had a carryover effect. But they've also benefited from things like material price deflation, sourcing efficiencies, and improvements in their product formulations. It's a reminder that managing margins is a complex game with, multiple levers.
Okay, so they're juggling a lot of balls in the air. What's the overall financial picture looking like?
Well, both their standalone and consolidated financials kind of tell a similar story, a challenging top line impacting profitability. We've already discussed the decline in net sales driven by that subdued demand in the domestic decorative segment.
And their consolidated profit before depreciation, interest, and taxes margin, or PBDIT margin, is down to 19.2% from 24.7% last year. So their profitability is definitely feeling the squeeze.
Yes, and on a 9-month basis, the PVDIT margin is down to 17.9%, which reflects the impact of those lower sales volumes we discussed earlier. It paints a picture of a company navigating a challenging environment.
So after all this, what's the outlook for Asian Paints? Are they throwing in the towel, or are they ready to fight for their market share?
Well, they have expressed cautious optimism. They anticipate continued challenges in those urban markets, for at least the next 2 quarters.
Makes sense. People aren't exactly lining up to repaint their homes right now.
However, they also see potential bright spots in rural demand, fueled by things like good monsoon seasons and expected government spending. And they're placing a lot of emphasis on their core strengths, strengthening their brand, scaling their industrial businesses.
So they're not just waiting for the storm to pass, they're actively looking for opportunities to thrive.
Exactly. And they're hoping for a boost from improving economic conditions in some of their key Asian markets. However, they do remain concerned about the weakening rupee, which could impact their import costs.
Sounds like they're in for a bumpy ride, but they're not backing down from the challenge.
Absolutely. And that brings us to, I think, a crucial question, for you to consider. In a market like this, where demand is uncertain and competition is heating up, how can a company effectively balance cost control with investment in innovation and growth?
That's a tough one. It's like trying to paint a masterpiece with one hand tied behind your back.
Precisely. And that's what makes Asian Paint's journey so fascinating to follow.
Well, this deep dive has given us a lot to think about. We've uncovered some of the key challenges and opportunities facing Asian Paints, and we've gotten a glimpse into their strategies for navigating this, complex landscape.
We've explored their financial performance, their presence in those various segments, and their efforts to kind of adapt to a changing market.
But this is just the beginning. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve even deeper into their strategic responses, exploring how they're leveraging things like innovation, distribution, and customer engagement to maintain that leadership position.
We'll also analyze their approach to cost management and talent development, two really crucial factors in their long-term success.
So stay tuned for part 2, where we'll continue to unpack the fascinating world of Asian Paints.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Asian Paints. Last time, we were talking about their financial performance and, the challenges they're up against.
Yeah, it does seem like they're in a kind of tricky spot with demand slowing and competition heating up.
Yeah, precisely. And that's what made their recent investor call so interesting. It really gave us a glimpse into how they're, thinking about these challenges and the strategies they're putting in place to address them.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me the inside scoop.
Well, one of the key themes that really stood out from the call was their focus on understanding the, nuances of different market segments. They really emphasized that a one-size-fits-all approach just won't cut it in today's market.
So they're not just painting everything with the same brush.
Exactly. They're recognizing that different segments have different needs and preferences, and they're, tailoring their strategies accordingly.
Can you give me some specific examples?
Sure. In rural areas where demand's been more resilient, they're focusing on expanding their distribution network, making their products more accessible. They even mentioned introducing a new category of paint specifically for, the bottom of the pyramid.
That's interesting. What's this new paint all about?
It's called neo-latex paint, and it's designed to be more affordable, more accessible to a wider range of consumers.
So it's not just about geographical expansion, it's also about reaching new customer groups within existing markets.
Precisely. They're also exploring ways to, speed up the painting process. They're recognizing that convenience and speed are becoming, really important for consumers.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Nobody wants their house turned upside down for weeks on end just to get a fresh coat of paint.
Exactly. And they've come up with some, pretty innovative solutions like their Nilea Wall WR Wrap, which they claim can help consumers revamp their homes in just 3 days.
3 days. That's impressive. Sounds like they're really thinking outside the paint can, huh?
They are. And they're also focusing on, improving the overall customer experience, not just in terms of product innovation, but also in terms of service and support.
That makes sense. In a competitive market, providing excellent customer service, that can be a real differentiator.
Absolutely. And this focus on the customer experience, it extends to their business-to-business segment as well.
Oh, right. They have a pretty big B2B business, don't they?
They do, and they're quite bullish on its growth potential. They highlighted several positive trends, including increased capital expenditure in India, upcoming government spending on infrastructure projects, and, the booming hospitality sector.
So they're seeing opportunities in both the consumer and business markets.
Precisely. And they're tailoring their strategies to capitalize on those opportunities.
Sounds like they're covering all their bases.
They're certainly trying to, but they're also realistic about the challenges, that they're facing.
Like the demand slowdown and the new competition we talked about earlier.
Exactly. They acknowledge that there's no, quick fix for these challenges.
No, they're not promising any miracles.
No. But they are confident in their ability to adapt and, innovate. And they're taking a long-term view.
That's reassuring. It's good to know they're not, panicking and making rash decisions.
Right. They're focusing on their core strengths, strengthening their brand, building a sustainable business. They're also committed to investing in innovation and talent development.
All of which sounds like a pretty solid foundation for future growth.
It certainly does. But it's not going to be a walk in the park.
No, they're going to have to fight for every inch of market share.
And that brings us to, I think, another key takeaway from the investor call. The importance of agility and adaptability in a rapidly changing market.
So they're not just sticking to the same old playbook.
Definitely not. They talked about the need to constantly reassess their strategies, make adjustments based on market dynamics and competitive pressures.
It's like they're playing a game of chess, always thinking a few moves ahead.
Exactly. And they gave some interesting examples of how they're, approaching this need for agility.
Like what?
Well, one example is their response to the entry of new competitors in the market.
Right. We talked about that earlier. The new kid on the block who's trying to shake things up.
Exactly. And Asian Paints is taking this challenge seriously. They acknowledge that the competitive landscape is, it's shifting, and they're taking steps to ensure that they remain competitive.
How are they doing that?
They emphasized the importance of understanding the value propositions offered by new entrants and responding, strategically. They're also maintaining a dynamic approach to pricing and promotional strategies, adapting to, changing market conditions.
So they're not just sitting back and watching the competition steal their customers.
No, they're fighting back, but they're doing it strategically. They're not getting caught in a race to the bottom on price.
That's a smart move. You can't win a price war against a competitor who's willing to lose money.
Exactly. And that's where their focus on innovation, brand building, and customer experience comes into play.
It's about offering value beyond just price.
Precisely. They're aiming to differentiate themselves through, product quality, service excellence, and a strong brand reputation.
It's like building a moat around their business,
Yeah,
making it difficult for competitors to, encroach on their territory.
that's a great analogy.
Hmm.
And it brings us to another crucial point. The importance of understanding the evolving needs and expectations of customers.
So they're not just focused on what their competitors are doing, they're also paying attention to what their customers want.
Exactly. They emphasize that consumer preferences are, they're changing, and companies need to stay ahead of the curve.
What are some of these changing preferences?
Well, they talked about the increasing demand for, eco-friendly and sustainable products, and the need to offer solutions that cater to the specific needs of different customer segments.
So they're not just painting everyone with the same green brush.
No, they're recognizing that different customers have different needs and priorities, and they're developing products and services that, address those specific needs.
Sounds like they're really trying to get inside the minds of their customers.
They are, and they're using, data and analytics to inform their strategies.
So it's not just gut feeling, it's a data-driven approach.
Exactly. They're analyzing consumer trends, and they're using those insights to develop products and services that, meet evolving needs.
That's a smart way to stay ahead of the game.
It certainly is, and it brings us to another important aspect of their strategy, their internal initiatives and operational strategies.
Okay, let's talk about that. What's happening behind the scenes at Asian Paints?
Well, they highlighted a number of, interesting areas, including cost optimization, talent management, and their approach to research and development.
So it's not just about external market factors, it's also about ensuring that their internal operations are running smoothly.
Precisely. They emphasize that these internal factors are crucial to their long-term success and, their ability to navigate the current market volatility.
Makes sense. You can't win a race if your car isn't running properly.
Exactly. And they provided some, specific examples of how they're addressing these internal aspects.
Like what?
Well, they talked about their focus on cost optimization, which is especially critical, in a time of economic uncertainty and tight margins.
Right. They need to make sure they're not, wasting money,
Hmm.
but they also need to invest in growth.
That's the challenge, right? Finding that right balance. And they seem to be doing a good job of it.
Also,
They talked about implementing, various cost-saving measures without compromising on product quality or service levels.
so they're not just cutting corners.
No, they're finding ways to do more with less. They mentioned initiatives to streamline their supply chain, improve manufacturing efficiency, and optimize their distribution network.
All of which sounds very, very sensible.
It is. And they're also paying close attention to talent management.
Right. Because, people are a company's most important asset.
Absolutely. They emphasize the importance of attracting, retaining, and developing top talent.
How are they doing that?
Well, they mentioned initiatives to foster a positive work environment, provide opportunities for professional growth, and recognize and reward high performers.
So they're creating a workplace where people want to come to work and do their best,
Exactly. And they're also investing heavily in research and development.
which is essential for any company that wants to, stay ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. They talked about their commitment to developing innovative products that meet evolving customer needs and address environmental concerns.
Like the air purifying paint we discussed earlier.
Exactly. And they're also working on, other exciting innovations like paints with enhanced durability, improved washability, and even paints that can regulate temperature.
Wow, that's impressive. It sounds
Yeah.
like they're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with paint technology.
They certainly are, and they're leveraging their internal expertise and resources to do it.
So they're not just relying on external partners or acquisitions.
No, they're building their own capabilities.
That's a smart strategy.
Yeah.
It gives them more control over their destiny.
Precisely. And it brings us back to that question we posed earlier. How can Asian Paints leverage their internal strengths to navigate the current market challenges and maintain their leadership position?
That's a tough question. But they seem to be on the right track, focusing on cost optimization, talent management, R&D.
And they're also building strong relationships with their suppliers and their customers.
Right, because partnerships are essential in today's, business environment.
Absolutely. They talked about the importance of collaborating with their suppliers to develop, more sustainable raw materials and packaging solutions, and partnering with their distributors to enhance their reach and improve their service delivery.
So they're not just going it alone, they're building a network of partners to help them succeed.
Precisely. And they're even open to collaborating with their competitors on, industry-wide initiatives like promoting sustainability and responsible manufacturing
It's
practices.
pretty remarkable, competitors working together for the greater good.
It is, and it speaks to their commitment to the long-term health and sustainability of the industry.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored their financial performance, their strategic responses, their internal initiatives.
But there's one more crucial aspect we need to address.
Oh, there's more.
Yes, their approach to managing risk and uncertainty.
Right. Because in today's volatile world, anything can happen.
Exactly, and Asian Paints is well aware of that. They acknowledge that there are, several potential risks and challenges that could impact their business.
Like what?
Well, they mention factors like, fluctuations in raw material prices, currency exchange rate volatility, changes in government regulations, and even, geopolitical uncertainties.
So a lot of things that are outside of their control.
Exactly. But that doesn't mean they're just, sitting back and hoping for the best.
No, they're taking proactive steps to manage these risks.
Precisely. They talked about having a dedicated risk management team that constantly monitors potential threats and develops mitigation strategies.
So they're not just, winging it.
No, they're taking a structured and disciplined approach.
That's reassuring.
It is.
Yeah.
They're also taking steps to, diversify their operations, both
Mhm.
geographically and in terms of product offerings.
That makes sense. Spreading the risk across different markets and products.
Exactly. And they're also building strong relationships with their suppliers and customers, to ensure a stable and reliable supply chain.
So it's a multifaceted approach to risk management.
It is. And it demonstrates their commitment to safeguarding their business and, ensuring its long-term sustainability.
Well, it sounds like they're doing everything they can to stay ahead of the game.
They certainly are. But as we've seen, the business world is constantly evolving, and there's always a new challenge around the corner.
That's true. But it's also, exciting because it means there's always an opportunity to learn and grow.
Exactly. And that's what makes, deep dives like this so fascinating. We get to see how companies are adapting, innovating to stay ahead of the curve.
Well, I've definitely learned a lot from this deep dive into Asian paints.
Me too. And I'm sure our listeners have as well.
But before we wrap up, I have one more question.
Okay, what is it?
We've talked a lot about their strategies for dealing with the current market challenges, but what about the future?
Mm.
What are they doing to position themselves for, long-term success?
That's a great question, and it's one that we'll explore in more detail in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me a little sneak peek.
Well, they're investing heavily in innovation, and they're exploring new markets and new product categories.
Like the smart paint technologies we discussed earlier.
Exactly. They see a lot of potential in those technologies, and they're committed to being a leader in that space.
That's exciting. It sounds like they're really thinking about the future.
They are, and they're taking steps to ensure they're, well positioned to succeed in whatever the future may hold.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about that in the next part of our deep dive.
Me neither. It's going to be fascinating to see how Asian Paints continues to, evolve and innovate.
So stay tuned for part 3, where we'll explore Asian Paint's vision for the future and the trends that are, shaping the industry. So we've spent the last 2 parts of this deep dive really getting into the nitty-gritty of Asian Paint's current situation.
Yeah, we covered their financial performance, their strategic responses to market challenges, even their internal initiatives.
But, now I'm kind of curious about the bigger picture. Where do they see themselves going in the future?
That's a great question. And the investor call actually offered some intriguing clues. They spent a good amount of time talking about their vision for the future and, the trends that they see shaping the industry.
Okay, color me intrigued. What's their crystal ball showing?
Well, one thing that really stood out was their emphasis on sustainability. They see this as, a key driver of growth and innovation in the coming years.
Makes sense. I mean, consumers are definitely becoming more and more environmentally conscious, and, companies need to respond to that.
Exactly. And Asian Paints is, they're taking this seriously. They're not just talking about sustainability. They're taking concrete steps to actually reduce their environmental impact.
Like what?
Well, they're investing in research and development to create more, eco-friendly products. They're also working to reduce their carbon footprint and their reliance on, non-renewable resources.
So they're trying to paint a greener future, literally.
That's one way to put it. And they're also looking at sustainability, from a holistic perspective. They're not just focused on their own operations, but they're also working with their suppliers, their distributors to, make the entire supply chain more sustainable.
That's a collaborative effort.
It is. And they really believe that this is the only way to achieve, meaningful progress on sustainability.
Okay, so sustainability is a big theme. What else is on their radar for the future?
Another key trend they highlighted is the growing demand for personalization. Consumers are no longer content with those one-size-fits-all solutions. They want, products and services that are tailored to their individual needs and preferences.
So it's like the me generation, but for paint.
You could say that. And Asian Paints is responding to this trend by offering, a wider range of colors, finishes, textures. They're also developing new technologies that allow customers to actually create their own, custom paint colors.
Whoa, that's pretty cool. Imagine being able to design your own, perfect shade of blue.
Exactly. And this trend towards personalization is also driving innovation in their, in their B2B segment. They're working with architects, designers, builders to create, custom paint solutions for specific projects.
But they're just selling paint, they're selling solutions.
Precisely. They're becoming a partner to their customers, helping them to, achieve their design goals.
Okay, sustainability, personalization, big trends. Anything else we should be aware of?
Yeah, they also talked about the growing importance of technology. They see technology as, a key enabler of both innovation and efficiency in the paint industry.
So they're not just sticking with brushes and rollers.
Definitely not. They're investing in, digital technologies to improve their manufacturing processes, their supply chain, even their customer interactions.
Can you give me some specific examples?
Sure, they're using data analytics to, optimize their production planning, inventory management. They're also developing new online tools that allow customers to, browse colors, order paint, schedule consultations.
So they're embracing the whole, the digital revolution.
They are, and they believe that this is, essential to staying competitive in the years to come.
Okay, so they're focused on sustainability, personalization, technology. What does all this mean for, their future prospects?
Well, they're confident that these trends will, drive growth in the paint industry in the coming years, and they believe that they're, well positioned to capitalize on these opportunities.
They've got the resources, the expertise, and the vision to succeed.
Exactly. And they're also, they're taking that long-term view. They're not just focused on short-term profits. They're investing in the future.
Which is a smart move because, the paint industry is not going anywhere.
That's true. People will always need to paint their homes, their businesses, and Asian Paints is determined to be the company that provides them with, the best products and services.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a much better understanding of Asian Paints. They're clearly a company that's not afraid to embrace change and innovation.
And they're also a company that's, committed to sustainability and to creating value for their customers.
I think that's a winning combination.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see what they accomplish, in the years to come.
Me too. It's going to be fascinating to watch their journey.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Asian Paints. We've covered a lot of ground, from their financial performance to their vision for the future.
We've explored their challenges, their opportunities, and, we've gained some insights into their strategies for success.
I hope you've enjoyed this deep dive as much as we have, and I hope you'll join us next time for another fascinating exploration of the business world.
Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.